All right, Chapter 3, Section 1 deals with coordinate plane and some other things associated with the coordinate plane. First thing you have to understand, this is the x-axis. This would be your y-axis, which divides your coordinate plane up into 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1 is the positive quadrant. Quadrant 2 is the negative positive quadrant. Quadrant 3, it's the negative quadrant for both the x and y term. And quadrant 4 is the positive negative quadrant. So it goes this way around when you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, counterclockwise. And that will come into play as if you ever take a trigonometry course. And so, plotting this point 6, negative 3 would be to the right 6 and down 3. And so there is our coordinate. Plotting negative 2, positive 5 would be 2 to the left and 5 up. And so that would be the coordinate. Now, the other things that you are going to be asked to find would, once you plot some points, you may have to find the midpoint, or you may need to find the distance between the 2 points. So first off, the midpoint, which is halfway in between them. To find the midpoint, take the 2 x values and add them together and divide by 2, or find the average of the 2 x values. And then do the same thing with the y values. So looking back at our problem, our 2 coordinates here where we have 6, negative 3 and a negative 2, 5. You would take 6 plus a negative 2 divided by 2 and a negative 3 plus 5 and divided by 2. And 6 plus a negative 2 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. And a negative 3 plus 5 is 2, divided by 2 is 1. So 2, 1 is the midpoint. And if you look at that, 2, 1 is right there. Just so that you see that it's on the same line, we take that and connect to that. They're on the same line, so therefore that has to be somewhere on that line, in which that looks like this distance from here to here is the same as the distance from there to there. So that's your midpoint. Now, the other thing that you will be asked to find is the distance between 2 points. A couple of ways you can do that. One way would be is to make yourself a line going like that, and a line going through this one horizontally. And what happens when you draw those 2 lines in is you form yourself a right triangle. And then you can use the Pythagorean theorem. Which says that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This being c, this being A, and that being B. So you have to find the distance from here to there, and the distance from there to there by counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so 8 squared plus 8 squared equals 64 plus 64, which is 128. And so then the square root of 128 would be what this distance is. And the square root of 128 can be simplified to the square root of 64 times 2, and the square root of 64 is 8. So it is 8 times the square root of 2. That's one way to find the distance between 2 points, but it is not the most efficient way all the time, because you may not be able to draw the 2 points on a coordinate plane because they may be so large or so small, or possibly they're decimal numbers, and then you're not going to be able to put them in an exact place. So that's why you need to have a formula. But it follows the same path as this a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The only difference is when we take c, we're going to get it by itself. So we have to get rid of the squared by taking the square root. And so then the distance between any 2 points is equal to the square root of the x values subtracted and squared added to the y values subtracted and squared. And whether you put it as x1 minus x2 or x2 minus x1, it doesn't matter, because when you square it, you're still going to get a positive number anyway. So it's your choice. Using the same 2 coordinates again, which were 6, -3, and a -2, 5, just to show you how this works, even though we already know this answer, we would say the distance equals, and now we would take the x values, 6 minus a -2 squared plus -3 minus 5 squared. 6 minus a -2 is 8, and 8 squared is 64. -3 minus 5 is a -8, and a -8 squared is a positive 64 as well. So you still have the square root of 64 plus 64, which is the same as the square root of 128, which is the same as the square root of 64 times 2, and that gets you 8 times the square root of 2. And once again, like I said before, if you put -2 minus 6 here, then you would get a -8. Square it, you'd still get 64. If you have a -5, or no, not a -5, it's a positive 5. You would have 5 minus a -3 squared, which is 8 squared, and still 64. So it doesn't matter which way you put those into the formula. And those are the different things that you're going to be doing for today's assignment in section 3.1. Those of you in Goodhue and Kenyon Wanamingo, you may need to go see your secretary to get, or Holly and Corey to get the assignment sheet, as I will have to send that to them.